Did you know adults 60 plus lose more than $60 billion each year to financial exploitation? Greenlight's new Family Shield plan empowers you to monitor your accounts for suspicious activity, protect yourself with up to $1 million in identity theft coverage, and reassure loved ones that you're safe with location sharing and place alerts. Get peace of mind today at greenlight.com/protect. That's greenlight.com/protect.
It is Ryan Seacrest here. There was a recent social media trend which consisted of flying on a plane with no music, no movies, no entertainment. But a better trend would be going to ChumbaCasino.com. It's like having a mini social casino in your pocket. Chumba Casino has over 100 online casino-style games, all absolutely free. It's the most fun you can have online and on a plane. So grab your free welcome bonus now at ChumbaCasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
By mid-1990, 5 years out, the Dean case was stagnant. A report by Douglas County Sheriff's Captain Bill Walker stated, quote, "The homicide case of Roger Dean from 1985 had not been actively worked for a couple of years due to leads having run out and nowhere to go with the case." Well, that was about to change, big time. On July 21st, 1990, the Douglas County Sheriff's Office received a phone call from DJ Dean, who was living in a different home in Lone Tree, which she shared with her daughter, Tammy. DJ was very upset. In the mail to her home, she had received a letter with no return address. It read, "Mrs. DJ Dean, this is a very, very important letter. Read it carefully, follow each instructions to the letter, and do not call the police. Your life and Tammy's depends on how you conduct yourself. DJ, on a cold, snowy morning in November 1985, I had your husband Roger murdered. At this point, you are probably frightened. And by the way, I'm leaving in all the misspellings and grammatical errors in this letter, just to give you the context. At this point, you are probably frightened and hoping this is some kind of joke. Well, you should be frightened because this is no joke. To prove to you who I am, I will recount some of the events that took place that morning. 1. You were in the tub when Roger and I came to get you. 2. I tied your hands and covered your eyes and laid you on your bed. 3. I took Roger into Tammy's room, then I politely talked to you about your bank account. 4. Roger tried to escape while you and I were talking. I caught him. 5. As you stood at the top of the stairs, Roger refused to pay me the money he owes me. He tried to struggle. I shot him 4 to 5 times to make sure he died. 6. I left my black bag which contained tape, rope, and a knife, some of your jewelry. Also in the struggle, I took off my ski mask so Roger would know who killed him and why. 7. I did not kill you, even knowing you could be a witness if we were ever caught, but that will never happen. By now, you should realize that I am one of the 2 persons who came into your Lone Tree home with orders to kill Roger if he did not pay his debt. You were right. There were 2 of us, not 1. 8. DJ, do you know that I have met your daughter Tammy on a few occasions? I have followed her to New York, Arizona, and Costa Mesa. She is a very attractive blonde and a very good model. Do not make me kill her. If you go to the police or even mention this letter and what you are doing to Tammy, I will kill her. If you think the police or anyone else can stop me, ask Roger. Now that Tammy is home with you, I can easily kill her when she leaves in the morning or goes out at night. But if you do what you were told, you and Tammy will be left alone. But if you do not do exactly what you were told, if you will wait until they can no longer protect her and kill her." At that point, I think he means I'll wait until they can no longer protect her and I will kill her. Back to the letter. If she leaves, I can find her. I know all the places she can go. Do not make your daughter live a life on the run and in hiding, hoping that she will not be killed that day. Do as I tell you, and Tammy need never know of this. If you do not, Tammy and you are dead. If you do not believe me, ask Roger. 4 exclamation points. DJ, I am a professional at what I do. My profession is contract killing and loan sharking. I killed your husband because he would not pay his loans from me to keep his business going and to finance his affairs he was having with certain women. I think you know of at least one affair he was having at work. When he took my money, he knew that his life and his family's lives were in jeopardy. Now I am ready for you to pay this debt, Mrs. Dean, underlined. Before I tell you how much I want and how you will get the money to me, I want you to understand that, and this is in all caps, I will kill Tammy if you go to the police, parentheses, you are being watched, you know. Or do not follow my instructions, as you know. I am capable of cold-blooded murder without remorse or being caught. Roger proves that point, and being here close to Tammy proves I can do it again. All right, this next part of the letter is all in caps. Be smart and keep your daughter alive. Your son is dead. Your husband is dead. Do not risk your daughter. She is the last one left. If you go to the police, I will wait until they can no longer protect her and kill her. I can find her wherever she is, and I am patient. Do not make her life and your a living hell. She does not know that I have been following her for some time. I have talked to her on a couple of occasions at her job. She doesn't have a clue who I really am. She quite an attractive blonde. Please don't make me kill her. Do exactly what you were told. In one day you will live to see your grandchildren. If you do not tell me, we will be dead in 2 years or less, and you will be dead in 3. You may ask yourself, how do I profit if you were not alive to repay Roger's debt? Well, your family's murders will be an example to anyone who feels they can get away without paying me. Don't let Tammy and your life becoming an example. I hope you don't want me to pay Tammy a visit. Do exactly what you were told and everyone will come out of this intact. If you don't, Tammy's blood will be on your hands. I hope everything is crystal clear. If not, you had better reread this letter. Mrs. Dean, your husband owes me $150,000. This is a great deal of money and I want it back. I know you sold your Lone Tree home, sold the business, and collected his insurance to name but a few sources of your income. I want my money back. Mortgage your home, liquidate your retirement fund, close out your savings account, borrow the money, but do whatever is necessary to get me my money. You shall receive further instructions in the mail or phone as to how to deliver the money, but start raising the money now. I want no denominations larger than a $100 bill. If you try to mark the money, I will know it. Believe me, I will. So don't play any games with your daughter's life. I repeat, you are being watched. Tammy is being watched. If I suspect that you have notified the police, you will be crying at Tammy's gravesite. Also, to prove that I am very close to you, take a look at the Littleton postmark. You will have 5 days in which to raise the first $20,000. Get this thing done. If not, there will be a bloodbath. We'll contact you soon. Reread this letter immediately. Remember, go to the police and she will die, in all caps. So, as you heard, the letter writer claimed to be one and the same as Roger's killer, resurfacing after 5 years of silence. He knew details about the bathtub, DJ being put on the bed, and so on. Police had no doubt the letter was written by the killer, which was chilling because he not only knew a lot about Tammy, but claimed to still be watching her. Another letter arrived the same day as the first, shorter this time, but with the same threats and demands. Captain Bill Walker of the Douglas County Sheriff's Office was alerted by Sergeant Rowe about the letters. He called the special agent in charge of the FBI's Denver field office, Robert Pence. Pence was fully convinced that the knowledge of the murder demonstrated by the letter writer meant that he was the killer. He told the media, quote, "What's most unusual is we have an individual involved in the most serious crime, a homicide, who then, 5 years later, admits it, and then turns around and tries to extort the victim's family. That's unprecedented," end quote. Douglas County investigators were put in touch with a special agent Ron Walker, the supervisor of the FBI team that handled extortion in the region. Special Agent Walker sent a copy of the extortionist letter to the BAU for analysis. Meanwhile, Douglas County Sheriff's Captain Bill Walker immediately reopened the Roger Dean homicide investigation. He assigned investigator Tony Spurlock to lead it, opting for fresh eyes instead of reassigning Dale Rowe to the case he had worked for several years before the leads petered out. Spurlock was a new deputy back in 1985 and had been assigned to guard the door of the Dean home while the scene was being processed. Now, Spurlock immediately pulled the file from storage and started reading up on it. Captain Walker, Investigator Spurlock, and Sergeant Rowe also commenced an investigation into the missives, which were addressed to DJ at her new home address on Greensview Circle and appeared to have been typed on 2 different machines. The letter and extortion threats reactivated theories bandied about by the original investigators that perhaps Roger was being extorted, and his deviation from his daily routine on the day of the murder was because he had a meeting scheduled with whoever was trying to get money out of him. That meant that that person, the killer, was someone Roger had had contact with when he was alive, perhaps even someone he knew. The first order of business was to interview Tammy and DJ and find out what they knew, if anything, about the sender of the letters. The second was to start looking into everyone they knew who might have access to the type of information set forth in the letters. The meeting with Tammy and DJ took place on July 23rd. Investigators' notes say that DJ was understandably very upset and worried for her and her daughter's safety, given the threats to Tammy in the letter. The two women had no idea who could have sent the letters, saying they had no known enemies. Because the letter writers seemed to know specifics about the family's finances, DJ was asked about the posthumous sale of Roger's business, her continued involvement as a consultant and note holder, and whether the men who had purchased it, Jim Tynan and Don Dunhill, had any issues paying the note. She said after Roger's death, she closed out the business and transferred the deed of title to the buyers, collecting a promissory note for a portion of the purchase price. She had formerly handled the family's finances every month, and she had no idea who would know how much money she and Roger had. DJ was asked for the first time since 1985 about Roger's habits, and said her husband did no drugs. He wasn't a gambler because he was too cheap. As she put it, if he put a quarter in a slot machine, it would irritate him if he didn't get 50 cents back. There was just nothing that she could think of to identify the person who had sent the ominous and scary letters. Captain Walker assured Tammy and DJ that the police were on it, and they'd provide security to the women to ensure the letter writers' threats could not be carried out. Douglas County patrol units were advised of the situation, and patrols stepped up around DJ's home. Captain Walker also told Tammy that he or another officer was to accompany her everywhere, even the grocery store, and she was to keep them abreast of her planned outings. DJ was to continue to go to work every day as usual. Extra security was not needed for her at work, it was felt, as the letter writer viewed her as the goose that laid the golden egg and was unlikely to harm her. Next, SWAT team members were dispatched to map out the inside of the Dean house. This was so in case a confrontation with the extortionist happened there. They would know the exact layout and understand how to handle the situation. In addition, a phone tap was put on the Dean's home phone line. And United States Postal Service investigator Lemke was requested to monitor the Dean's incoming mail and pull any letters which came without a return address. And then the investigation took a turn. The Behavioral Analysis Unit of the FBI was quick to come back and advise the special agent assigned to work with the DCSO in this case, Ken Kerwin, that the investigators should be taking a very hard look at Tammy Dean and her boyfriend Paul B. as possible suspects in the extortion plot. Of course, the investigators did not tell DJ or Tammy this, but Captain Bill Walker's notes indicate he was side-eyeing Tammy as well. Walker had sat down for a 3-hour interview with Tammy on July 24th. Just a little history about Tammy here. After Roger's murder, she and DJ had moved to Arizona for a while, and while DJ returned to Colorado after a couple of years, Tammy finished school in Arizona and then moved to California before moving back to the Denver area in March of 1990. The killer had mentioned in his letter that he had watched Tammy in New York, Costa Mesa, and Arizona, all places she had indeed visited or lived. It seemed to the investigators that Tammy was glaringly the focus of the letters, and that seemed suspicious to them. After the BAU told the investigators to consider Tammy and her boyfriend Paul as possibly the people behind the letters, which were for some reason believed to have been constructed by a man and a woman, investigators eagerly went down that path. It seems Captain Walker was all too willing to suspect Tammy, as his notes say that Tammy didn't seem fazed at all that someone was threatening to kill her. Her attitude seemed to him to be somewhat blasé, as if she was not actually worried. He wrote in his report, quote, "Tammy talks to me about her personal life. She told me that she had received a lot of money when her father died and that she had a really good time spending it. She had bought her car, gone to Newport Beach, and spent a lot of money. She told me that she really enjoyed it." End quote. That doesn't really sound like something someone who was so close to her murdered father would say, does it? But Walker extrapolated that and thought maybe Tammy's funds were running low and she wanted to replenish the supply. And then the FBI dug up even more reason to look at Tammy. Special Agent Ken Kerwin had learned that Tammy had been the subject of an FBI narcotics investigation in May 1990. A cocaine ring was being operated out of a Lakewood health club she was affiliated with, and the FBI had considered whether Tammy was involved in drug sales out of the club. They didn't have sufficient evidence to charge her, and I want to be clear here that Tammy has absolutely denied any involvement whatsoever in this cocaine ring situation. But she did admit to being extremely close family friends with 2 brothers who had been busted for dealing coke and were in prison. She had even operated a photography studio out of the basement of one of the brothers. So even though there was no proof whatsoever that Tammy had anything to do with any of this, the fact that she was friends with people convicted of dealing coke was enough for the police to make the leap that now that the coke ring was busted and that source of income dried up, Tammy might have a motive to try to extort her mother. It didn't make any sense, but then nothing in this case did. Because the BAU had suggested that men in Tammy's life be considered, Tammy was queried about every male friend, boyfriend, ex-boyfriend, men she knew like Wes, Israel, John, and Rick, and whether she had bad blood with anyone. And the investigators focused heavily on her married but separated boyfriend Paul B., an office furniture salesman. He and Tammy had known each other for 9 years, and he was named by DJ's friend Judy as someone the police should talk to. He was close with the Deans, having spent the Christmas before Roger's murder with them in Phoenix. There were rumors that he had borrowed money from Roger, and now, in 1990, he was getting divorced, his wife wanted $804 a month in child support, and he needed bank. Paul B. had been present in DJ and Tammy's home when the first letter had arrived from the extortionist. He read it and advised them to call the Douglas County Sheriff's Office. He later told the investigators it was his opinion that the letters were probably written by Linda's son Robert O., as he felt it was somebody who likely knew the family.
Hi, I'm Cindy Crawford, and I'm the founder of Meaningful Beauty. Well, I don't know about you, but, I never liked being told, oh, wow, you look so good for your age. Why even bother saying that? Why don't you just say you look great at any age, every age? That's what Meaningful Beauty is all about. We create products that make you feel confident in your skin at the age you are now.
Meaningful Beauty. Beautiful skin at every age. Learn more at meaningfulbeauty.com.
Ever wonder why you have insurance for your car or home, but not your digital life? Meet WebRoot Total Protection, your digital bodyguard that is built for real life. WebRoot takes the guessing game out of cybersecurity, so you can confidently browse, bank, and be yourself online without the worry of hackers lurking around the corner. With WebRoot Total Protection, you get antivirus that scans 6 times faster and takes up 33 times less space than the other guys. Identity protection with up to $1 million in fraud expense reimbursement and 24/7 US-based customer support. VPN protection that hides your IP address, personal data, and location from hackers. And cloud backup with unlimited storage that works automatically in the background. With plans for individuals and families, WebRoot makes it easy to live a better digital life. Go to webroot.com/promo and get 50% off today. That's webroot.com/promo to get 50% off today. Live a better digital life with WebRoot, because peace of mind shouldn't be optional.
It is Ryan Seacrest here. There was a recent social media trend which consisted of flying on a plane with no music, no movies, no entertainment. But a better trend would be going to ChumbaCasino.com. It's like having a mini social casino in your pocket. Chumba Casino has over 100 online casino-style games, all absolutely free. It's the most fun you can have online and on a plane. So grab your free welcome bonus now at ChumbaCasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
More extortionist letters arrived. They followed in the vein of the first, with profanities, misspellings, and all cap and bolded text. The second letter, much shorter, read, DJ, this is your second letter, and I hope for your sake you have followed the instructions in the first letter exactly. If you have, then you won't have any problems except getting me my money. Don't make me come to your home while you're working at the Burnsley Hotel and rip your daughter to pieces. I have been following you from day one, and you have been working at the Burnsley for over 3 years. This should prove to you that I am patient and thorough. If you go to the police, I will most certainly send you Tammy's head in a basket, so don't fuck around. As to getting the money together, I want $80,000 now. Forget the $20,000. If you can get the $80,000 now, I will forget the rest of the debt. If not, I want that $20,000 and you will have to deal with me until the rest of the debt is resolved. You make the choice. Mortgage your home, borrow from the bank, family and or friends, clear out your assets, but get me my money and get it in a hurry. You will have until July 27th to do so. Remember, any police and Tammy is dead. Do not mention what you are doing to anyone. I will be in contact. I am watching you and Tammy. Don't forget that. Tammy later told Denver 7 of the letters, quote, most reiterated the same threats and demands. All continued to remind Mom that the sender was a cold-blooded killer and that my dad was his proof, end quote. Another letter that arrived on July 24th expressed the writer's anger because he believed DJ had contacted the CBI. He said that he would phone the house with his demands at 10 p.m. on July 27th and that they needed to be ready. Captain Walker met with FBI Special Agent Ron Walker and Agent Kerwin and handed over the latest letter for analysis by the profilers at the BAU. It was agreed that the FBI would step into the case, surveil the Dean home, record any phone calls, and make a full-scale effort to identify the extortionist. It's hard to overstate how many resources were put into trying to nab the extortionist who was sending letters to Roger Dean's widow and daughter. According to a 2006 article by Colorado Community Media, the search for the extortionist was the largest manhunt in Denver's history at the time. Between 35 and 40 FBI agents were briefed and were prepared to be involved in the sting operation over the weekend on which the letter writer said he would phone the home. They knew to expect a phone call to DJ Dean at 10 o'clock on July 27th, and a command post was established inside the Dean residence where all of the FBI monitoring equipment was placed. Some agents were assigned to trace the call. Others were stationed around town to speed to the source of the call once the location was pinpointed. Others to accompany DJ to work all day, and still others were assigned to surveil Tammy's boyfriend Paul B., where he was staying with friends at 6th and Glencoe in Denver, to see if he was the one making the call. The Douglas County deputies all had assignments, with Sheriff Zotos himself assigned to ride with one of the FBI vehicles in the field. What could go wrong? Sure enough, on the 27th at 10 o'clock, the house phone rang. The caller, who appeared to be disguising his voice by plugging his nose, gruffly asked DJ if she had the money he had requested. She said she did. He said that he would call back on Saturday at 12:30 p.m. to give instructions. Within 2 minutes, the trace was in. The call was made out of the Vickers gas station in the area of 5400 East Colfax, 9 blocks away from where Paul B. was staying at 432 Glencoe. But by the time the officers got to the phone booth, no one was there. At 1 a.m., they called it a night, leaving 3 FBI agents guarding Tammy and DJ overnight. The women were instructed not to answer the phone. The next morning, everyone was in place by 11 a.m. Douglas County investigators Romberger and Rowe were assigned to set up surveillance outside Paul B.'s home. Investigators Castellano and Atkinson were assigned to watch the phone booth for the call from the night before. Again, the command post was set up in the house. Investigators Spurlock and Sheriff Zotos went to the staging area for response teams at the Kmart on County Line and I-25. At 12:27 p.m., the house phone rang. The caller again demanded to know whether DJ had the money ready and told her he would contact her at 7 p.m. on Sunday with further instructions. Within 2 minutes of the phone call being placed, the phone trap had traced it to the ER payphone at the Rose Medical Center, approximately 10 blocks from where investigators Castellano and Atkinson were stationed. They raced to the hospital and found the phone, but no one was there. They processed it for prints, collecting 2, and asked around, but no one had noticed the caller. There was no activity whatsoever at Tammy's boyfriend Paul B.'s residence. Captain Walker talked with DJ and Tammy again after the sting once again failed. She and DJ were asked to think hard about anyone they knew who might live in the area where the phone calls were coming from, which was an area bounded by Colorado Boulevard, Monaco, 6th Avenue, and Colfax. Quote, she stated that the only person she knew was her boyfriend Paul, end quote. But as soon as Tammy picked up that the investigators were asking about Paul's financial situation and record, she told them, "You are barking up the wrong tree." She got visibly upset at the idea that the investigators thought Paul might be involved and did not believe it for a minute. The investigators sent DJ and Tammy to a hotel in Colorado Springs to return on Sunday in time for the next phone call. The plan for Sunday was the same, with additional FBI agents on hand to saturate the area from which the 2 phone calls had originated. At 7 p.m., the phone rang. The caller said all the same things. "I'm watching you. You better have my money. I'll hurt Tammy if you don't." This time, the call was coming from a Vickers gas station located at 990 South Monaco Parkway in Denver. Investigators were on site within 2 minutes, and this time, they snagged a black male who was on the payphone. But it was the wrong phone. It was the next one over in the phone bank. And the man using the phone was legit. He was using it to call into his work to say he would be late. Again, the phone was processed for fingerprints, and that was all investigators could do. 48 hours of this was too much for DJ. After the Sunday phone call, quote, Mrs. Dean became very hysterical, and officers spent a significant amount of time with her trying to get her under control emotionally, end quote. Personally, I cannot imagine how stressful this would all be. If a man who murdered your husband was calling your house, making demands and threatening the life of your daughter, they'd probably have to take me away in a straitjacket. Anyway, once again, law enforcement personnel were assigned to stay with Tammy and DJ, and they waited. Monday, it was the same thing. The command post was set up in the house. Agents and deputies were swarming the place. If the extortionist was watching, he would absolutely know that DJ was in cahoots with the cops. And maybe that's why no call came in on Monday night. Nothing on Tuesday either. On Wednesday, August 8th, the USPS investigator flagged another letter addressed to DJ. The letter contained several more threats on Tammy's life. There were also references to the letter writer being angry about police presence. The writer named a drop-off point where the money was to be left and gave 2 different times that it could be done. Later, Chief Investigator Tony Spurlock told Colorado Community Media, quote, "The guy knew we were onto him." The Douglas County Sheriff's Office and the FBI discussed the concept of full-time security for Tammy going forward, and neither felt that they had the resources to do that. They discussed asking Tammy if she wanted to consider being placed into a federal witness protection program and being moved out of state. Then, on the 13th of August, another phone call came in from a closed gas station on York Street in Denver. The caller told DJ to get the money together and said he would call back on the 14th with further instructions. When that phone call came in, it was traced to 2691 East 2nd Avenue in Denver, a place called Cricket's Bar. Tony Spurlock later told Colorado Community Media, quote, "We were always about 30 seconds behind the suspect, and when you think about 30 seconds on Colfax, it's an eternity." On the 16th of August, the phone rang at the house and Tammy Dean answered it. The male voice was not recognizable to Tammy, and he refused to identify himself, demanding to speak to her mother. When she went to call for her mom, the man hung up. Another call came in later that same day. The caller said, "Have the money. Be ready for the 17th at 7:30 p.m. And after that, I have no more case files documenting what happened. The FBI took over the extortion investigation and relegated the Douglas County investigators to the homicide investigation, which didn't have any new information unrelated to the extortion. This is the last line in Captain Walker's report, quote, "On August 10th, 1990, I informed Sheriff Zotos of the FBI decision in not requesting any help from us. We decided that it would be useless for us to try to do anything on our own without being in concert with the FBI operation," end quote. As for the extortion, a later probable cause affidavit states, quote, "Agents from the FBI were involved and took over the investigation. After several communications occurred between Doris and the suspect, they agreed to drop money at a location in Denver. The money drop was made, but the suspect never claimed the money. The case was turned over to the FBI and was not solved," end quote. In fact, there were 2 attempted money drops. Several more terse, threatening phone calls were made to the Dean residence, with 2 on the 17th. One instructed DJ to go to a King Soopers payphone for further instructions. At the payphone, he instructed DJ to go to another nearby parking lot across from St. Joseph's Hospital. According to the Denver Post blogs in 2010, quote, "Doris Dean said she took money to a King Soopers store 20 miles from her home as the extortionist directed. An armed FBI agent was crouched behind the front seat, surveillance and SWAT teams hidden. She said she couldn't remember where she was supposed to go, and the extortionist called and cussed Tamara out, telling her that her mother messed up and that he was going to mess her up. It might happen in 6 months or 6 years, but he would get her." Okay, pausing here. The drop of $20,000 on the 17th failed because a frazzled and anxious DJ couldn't remember details barked at her by a terrifying caller who ran her around to random phone booths. Totally understandable, but the man did not give up. Another phone call came in on the 19th. The caller instructed DJ to drop the money in an alleyway near 1721 Humboldt Street in Denver. Backed to the Denver Post blogs, quote, "On August 19, 1990, Doris Dean left money at a designated spot in Denver, but the extortionist never claimed the money. Deputies, police, and FBI agents were everywhere at the drop site," Doris Dean said. "The man did not pick up the money she had left," end quote. Special Agent Bob Pence of the Denver FBI later said on Unsolved Mysteries, quote, "Whether or not he spotted something, whether or not he just took for granted that the law enforcement was involved, or whether or not he got cold feet, or he was just too scared to actually make the pickup, I think all of those are possibilities," end quote.
Hi, I'm Cindy Crawford, and I'm the founder of Meaningful Beauty. Well, I don't know about you, but I never liked being told, oh, wow, you look so good for your age. Why even bother saying that? Why don't you just say you look great at any age, every age? That's what Meaningful Beauty is all about. We create products that make you feel confident in your skin at the age you are now.
Meaningful Beauty. Beautiful skin at every age. Learn more at meaningfulbeauty.com.
Ever wonder why you have insurance for your car or home, but not your digital life? Meet WebRoot Total Protection, your digital bodyguard that is built for real life. WebRoot takes the guessing game out of cybersecurity, so you can confidently browse, bank, and be yourself online without the worry of hackers lurking around the corner. With WebRoot Total Protection, you get antivirus that scans 6 times faster and takes up 33 times less space than the other guys. Identity protection with up to $1 million in fraud expense reimbursement and 24/7 US-based customer support. VPN protection that hides your IP address, personal data, and location from hackers. And cloud backup with unlimited storage that works automatically in the background. With plans for individuals and families, WebRoot makes it easy to live a better digital life. Go to webroot.com/promo and get 50% off today. That's webroot.com/promo to get 50% off today. Live a better digital life with WebRoot, because peace of mind shouldn't be optional.
It is Ryan Seacrest here. There was a recent social media trend which consisted of flying on a plane with no music, no movies, no entertainment. But a better trend would be going to ChumbaCasino.com. It's like having a mini social casino in your pocket. Chumba Casino has over 100 online casino-style games, all absolutely free. It's the most fun you can have online and on a plane. So grab your free welcome bonus now at ChumbaCasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
3 more phone calls left messages on DJ's answering machine on August 21, 22, and 25. Then one final call. On August 26th, the suspect called indicating he had not received the money. He had seen police. This time, he vowed that it was going to cost Tammy her life. He had patience. He would wait until authorities could no longer watch the family. Then, the phone calls and letters stopped, and DJ and Tammy never heard from the man again. The FBI was unable to develop useful fingerprints from the envelopes and letters. The massive investigation, hundreds of interviews, and months-long protection of DJ and Tammy failed to identify the extortionist. Paul B. was grilled repeatedly about whether he was behind the letters. Investigator Spurlock even collected samples from 2 typewriters Paul had access to, his own and his roommate's. Paul agreed to provide his fingerprints and participate in an exculpatory polygraph examination conducted by the FBI. He did so, and the polygraph examiner concluded that he was being truthful and cleared him as a suspect in the case. Another man, Richard P., a former boyfriend of Linda F's, whom she had said was jealous of her relationship with Roger back in 1985, was also closely looked at, but after a lot of time and resources, that went nowhere. After the investigation dried up, in 1991, DJ and Tammy participated in a press conference at the Douglas County Sheriff's Office to bring public attention to the extortion plot and therefore the unsolved murder. I'm reading this November 4th, 1991 article from the Colorado Springs Gazette verbatim. Family seeks clues to 6-year-old murder. Castle Rock. The widow of a murdered retail food broker and her daughter say they are breaking years of silence about the murder and subsequent extortion attempts in order to end years of terror. Douglas County Sheriff's Captain Bill Walker says Dean may have been the victim of an extortionist and possibly knew the man was coming. Investigators think the intruder may not have intended to kill Dean, Walker said. Just as an aside here, note that's not what the killer claimed in the letter. He said he shot Roger multiple times to be sure he was dead. Back to the article. But the investigation came up empty and was put on inactive status in the summer of 1986. When DJ Dean and her daughter Tammy began receiving extortion letters in July 1990, investigators reopened the case. Police say the extortionist knows details of Tammy's life from before Dean's murder, and based on information in his extortion letter, has followed her extensively since. The extortionist stayed in contact with the Deans for a month through letters and phone calls. Twice, he lured the Deans, police, and FBI agents into proposed money drops, but never picked up the money. The Deans and authorities talked for the first time about the extortion and murder on Saturday, hoping someone with information will come forward. "We have two serious crimes," said Robert Pence, who heads the Denver FBI office. "We feel the key to one very well could lie with the answer to the other." An extensive financial evaluation revealed that in the 8 months before he was killed, Roger Dean secretly transferred $32,000 from his company's bank account to a private bank account, Sheriff Sergeant Tony Spurlock said. After the murder, the account had about $200 in it. Investigators have questioned more than 200 people who knew the Deans or had business dealings with them. All but about 30 have been cleared, Spurlock said. "It's a real difficult decision to come forward with this. We don't know what we're going to trigger in him," said Walker. Okay, so you heard all that. Basically, they were desperate and released bombshell new information to the public about the extortion and the police theory that Roger was expecting his killer that morning, hoping that someone would call in a tip, someone who maybe knew their boyfriend had sent the letters or who knew someone who had been acting very weird, driving around to payphones and making rushed phone calls in late July and into August 1990. But the investigators in 1991 apparently weren't theorizing just that Roger had been extorted and had arranged to meet the person extorting him at his home that morning. No, apparently they thought Roger was in on it. I hate to read from newspaper articles so extensively, but this next one is really important to illustrate this theory. It reads, "Murderer of Dean eludes investigators. Douglas County News Press, 1992. "It's probably the best whodunits I've ever seen," said Bill Walker of the Douglas County Sheriff's Department of the Roger Dean murder extortion case. The case has been called fascinating and puzzling. Walker will tell you the Sheriff's Department is actively working on solving the case. And as if the murder investigation wasn't enough of a mystery, add the twist of extortion. 5 years after the death of her husband, DJ Jean received a letter from someone claiming to be her husband's killer. The letter gave details of the death, but even more disturbing, details about her daughter, Tammy. The letter mentions specific details about Tammy and threatens her life if the killer is not given money. It claims Roger owed the money to this person. 2 more letters follow. The final letter instructs Dean where to drop off the money. On August 10, 1990, FBI and the Douglas County Sheriff's Department saturate the drop area with undercover police and agents, but the money is never picked up. The extortionist makes a final call to the home, telling Tammy that instructions were not followed and he will hurt her. This is the last contact the extortionist makes. In 1990, after DJ received the first letter, Walker and investigator Tony Spurlock reopened the murder investigation. Walker said they started from square one as if the murder had just happened. Several clues led them to theorize that Roger Dean had planned the break-in so he could take the money for himself. Bullet point. Dean and his wife were suffering from personal problems. Bullet point. His business was on the market and they know he had taken funds from the business. Bullet point. Fact. Dean broke from his normal routine that morning. Every weekday morning, Dean was usually out of the house by 6 a.m. and went to the athletic club. On this morning, he didn't go to the club and was still at the house at 7 a.m. Bullet point. Fact. Witnesses saw Roger open up his garage door and stand in front of the house sipping coffee at 7 a.m. Dean's normal routine did not include him drinking coffee at home. Bullet point. Fact. As he stood in front of the garage, a man approached him. He accosted Dean and went into the house. Investigators found Dean's coffee mug placed in the garbage bin in the garage. No coffee had been spilled, nor did it look like there had been any physical force used, or the coffee mug would not have been intact. Bullet point. Theory. Investigators believe that Dean hired someone to come into the home and fake a robbery. The man would force Dean to go to the bank and clear out all the money and then drop Dean off somewhere. Dean would give the man a portion of the money and then be able to have the money free and clear. Bullet point. Theory. They suspect the man Dean hired got greedy and wanted all the money. When he entered the house and tied up DJ, the two exchanged words. A scuffle broke out and Dean ran down the stairs. The intruder got nervous and shot and hit Dean in the arm. When Dean flees, he is shot again. Investigators say the shots are sloppy. Bullet point. Motive. The puzzling thing is who would have a motive for extortion. Investigators are confident it is not family members. They don't know if the killer and the writer of the letters are the same person. Most of the information in the letters could have been attained through the media, except for the information about Tammy. So, the suspect may be a close friend or in some way know about the Dean family. "We will not quit until we solve this case," Walker said. In the last 5 years, the department has solved 9 other homicides. This is the only one that hasn't been solved. "It's been 2 years since the last letter, and I still go home at night and think about all of it," Walker said. He said he feels for the family and the nightmare they have to relive. He said he wants to solve the case for them, end quote. Okay, so that's what's going on behind the scenes. The investigators believed Roger colluded with someone, and that person basically double-crossed him. But the question that plagued this case from day one remained unanswered. Who was the shooter? No one would know for another 30 years.
Hi, I'm Cindy Crawford, and I'm the founder of Meaningful Beauty. Well, I don't know about you, but I never liked being told, oh, wow, you look so good for your age. Why even bother saying that? Why don't you just say you look great at any age, every age? That's what Meaningful Beauty is all about. We create products that make you feel confident in your skin at the age you are now.
Meaningful Beauty. Beautiful skin at every age. Learn more at meaningfulbeauty.com.
Ever wonder why you have insurance for your car or home, but not your digital life? Meet WebRoot Total Protection, your digital bodyguard that is built for real life. WebRoot takes the guessing game out of cybersecurity so you can confidently browse, bank, and be yourself online without the worry of hackers lurking around the corner. With WebRoot Total Protection, you get antivirus that scans 6 times faster and takes up 33 times less space than the other guys. Identity protection with up to $1 million in fraud expense reimbursement and 24/7 US-based customer support. VPN protection that hides your IP address, personal data, and location from hackers. And cloud backup with unlimited storage that works automatically in the background. With plans for individuals and families, WebRoot makes it easy to live a better digital life. Go to webroot.com/promo and get 50% off today. That's webroot.com/promo to get 50% off today. Live a better digital life with WebRoot, because peace of mind shouldn't be optional.
It is Ryan Seacrest here. There was a recent social media trend which consisted of flying on a plane with no music, no movies, no entertainment. But a better trend would be going to ChumbaCasino.com. It's like having a mini social casino in your pocket. Chumba Casino has over 100 online casino-style games, all absolutely free. It's the most fun you can have online and on a plane. So grab your free welcome bonus now at ChumbaCasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
The Roger Dean case was re-examined by Douglas County detectives starting in 2002, firmly within the DNA era. They reviewed the physical evidence and consulted with the CBI to see if they could possibly obtain DNA on any of the items of evidence. One good possible source of DNA that was still in evidence was the ski mask worn by Roger's shooter. In February of 2003, the mask was submitted to the CBI lab for DNA testing, where lab agent Matthew Murphy swabbed the ski mask in the eye and nose areas to produce swab 7-1. Then he swabbed the mouth area. That swab was marked 7-2. PCR testing yielded a profile for the DNA donor. It confirmed that the person who wore the mask was a male. A sufficient number of markers were obtained to enter the profile into the CODIS database, where no hits were received when the profile was run. Whoever shot Roger Dean, presumably the man wearing the ski mask, his DNA was not in CODIS. Investigator Tony Spurlock advanced through the DCSO ranks to become undersheriff and eventually sheriff of Douglas County. Even though the sheriff's office categorized the case as deactivated for lack of leads, Spurlock continued to conduct a biannual review of the case, any tips that came in, similar cases, and so on. He was very active in getting the case in the media as well, participating in an Unsolved Mysteries segment and a Colorado community media expose. He was very frank about what the working theory of the case was. As he told Colorado community media in 2006, quote, "We believe the victim, Roger Dean, knew his assailant and may have had some arrangements to meet him, but it went bad," end quote. The article continues. As Spurlock imagines the crime scene, he sees Dean setting down his coffee. Only Roger's and DJ's fingerprints were found on the cup, and leading the killer into the house through the garage, end quote. The killer then donned the mask and got Roger to lure DJ out of the tub and into the bedroom where she was blindfolded and restrained. The killer did not hurt her. He didn't want her to identify him, Spurlock said. He wasn't going to kill DJ. We found evidence in the house that indicated if the person really wanted to tie up and secure Roger Dean, he did a very poor job of it, period. End quote. I believe Spurlock was referring to the fact that there were apparently very few rope fibers on one of Roger's wrists and none on the other. Per CBS, Spurlock also told Unsolved Mysteries, quote, he believed several items found at the house were red herrings, planted to give the impression that Dean had been blindfolded and bound, end quote. For example, Roger had twine marks on only one wrist, so it appeared he had never actually been tied up by the gunman. Spurlock also referenced the duct-taped eyeglasses, which made no sense since Roger was wearing contact lenses. Spurlock continued, quote, we believe that Roger hired an individual to come over to basically kidnap him, take him to his bank, withdraw $30,000 from their account, and then obviously drop Roger off someplace so Roger could report a robbery and he would have that $30,000 to himself. Spurlock's theory was that the whole thing was a setup, and Roger's co-conspirator possibly double-crossed him, turned the tables, and tried to get more than his share. No honor among thieves and all that. Then when the two scuffled, the robber panicked and started shooting. Killing Roger was never the plan. Spurlock even felt that it was entirely possible that the ski mask and backpack had been left on purpose to prove that there had been an attempted robbery. DJ also needed to be convinced, which is why she was taken out of the tub and tied up and blindfolded. If the robber had just shown up and forced Roger to go to the bank, and DJ never saw or interacted with him, it would be a lot more suspicious. DJ was aware that the investigators were suspicious of her husband's role in the plot that ended up getting him killed, but she didn't believe it. She said in the Unsolved Mysteries segment, quote, in my heart, I cannot believe that Roger had anything to do with this. This is the man I was married to for 26 years. And yes, there had been personal problems in the last years, especially since the death of our son, but I knew the man too well. Tony Spurlock may have believed that Roger's mistress Linda was involved in the plot as well. He seemed to be eyeing her son Robert O. as the potential co-conspirator. He told Colorado Community Media, quote, we investigated the girlfriend's son and we're not satisfied with the investigation, end quote. He said evidence was inconclusive regarding the pair's involvement. Spurlock surprisingly did not think that the letters received by DJ were written by the killer. He told Colorado Community Media in 2006 that he believed, quote, the extortionist was someone who knew Tammy Dean and saw an opportunity to make money, end quote. He told the same publication in 2010, authorities don't believe the two cases are connected. Quote, the suspect in the murder case and the suspect in the extortion case are two different people, Spurlock said, but there is a difference of opinion in some circles. Nothing happened on the Dean case for years. Then, in 2018, with the advent of IgG, the Douglas County Sheriff's Office decided to see if they could use the male DNA on the ski mask to further their investigation. They sent a swab from the ski mask to Parabon's partner lab, which was able to obtain a SNP profile. That's pretty amazing, right? That means the swabs had picked up saliva, post-nasal drip, or eye juice deposited on the mask by the killer back in 1985, and in sufficient amounts to come up with enough SNPs to perform IgG. Parabon provided the DCSO with a phenotype analysis, which settled once and for all whether the ski mask-wearing suspect seen running from the Dean house by eyewitnesses was black or white. Parabon's report predicted that there was a 97.6% probability that the suspect's skin color was brown or dark brown. There was also extremely high likelihood that he had brown eyes and black hair. Finally, 33 years after Roger's murder, they finally knew that his killer was indeed a black male, just as the 9-year-old neighbor girl Carly had said. All those years of looking for a white killer had been wasted. Parabon also conducted a preliminary investigative genetic genealogy analysis and provided the Douglas County Sheriff's Office with 2 reports, dated October 12, 2018 and October 23, 2018. Using these reports, the Douglas County Sheriff's Office initiated their own IgG investigation. However, as we all know, IgG cases involving minority groups face unique challenges presented by the underrepresentation of those groups in the open-source DNA databases used for IgG. African American pedigrees can be particularly difficult because of the spotty and even non-existent documentation of enslaved persons and their descendants. In November 2020, Douglas County Sheriff's crime analyst Michelle Kennedy was assigned to the cold case unit. Listeners will recall that I have spoken of Ms. Kennedy before. She is a Colorado-based genealogist who is also a certified law enforcement analyst, and she's a board member of the Investigative Genetic Genealogy Accreditation Board. I'll touch on the IGGAB's new accreditation exam at the end of this episode, so stick around for that. Anyway, now the Douglas County Sheriff's Office cold case unit had a very experienced genealogist on staff. When Ms. Kennedy reviewed the upload of the suspect's SNP profile that had been made to Family Tree DNA and GEDmatch, she found that the top match was a woman named Tanea, who lived on the West Coast. She shared 171 centimorgans of DNA with the suspect, consistent with about a second cousin. 2 of her close relatives, one of whom was her mother, were also in GEDmatch, but shared no DNA with the suspect. This data helped eliminate several branches of her family tree and narrowed the focus to her father's maternal line. That entire family was rooted around the Shreveport, Louisiana area, and her great-grandfather on this branch of the tree, John Brown, the father of her father's mother, and his wife Emma Terrell had 9 children. Yikes. In reviewing the children, Ms. Kennedy found a 1971 obituary for John and Emma's son Isaiah Brown. In the obit, Ms. Kennedy noted that 2 of Isaiah's daughters were listed as living in Denver, Colorado. There was the first geographical connection to Colorado where Roger Dean was killed. It was time to start looking more closely at the descendants of these daughters, who were Tanea's first cousins once removed. Both had been born in the 1930s, so a son born to one of them would likely be the right age to be the 1985 suspect, and such a son would be a second cousin to Tanea, consistent with the DNA. Unfortunately, the women who were Tanea's first cousins once removed had several sons with connections to the Denver area. This was where the second DNA relative of the suspect came in. After Tanea, the next top match was named Corey. Corey was a pretty distant relative to the suspect, sharing just 51 centimorgans of DNA. He would turn out to be a second cousin once removed, with a low centimorgan sharing level because of a low call rate in the sample. But Corey's surname, Jefferson, was the same as the married name of a granddaughter of John Brown and a daughter of Isaiah Brown, another first cousin once removed to Tanea. This first cousin once removed, named Christine Brown Jefferson, and her husband, Raymond Jefferson, were the union couple Ms. Kennedy was looking for. Their marriage connected the Brown and Jefferson families the 2 top matches belonged to. One of Christine Brown and Raymond Jefferson's children was possibly the suspect. Christine and Raymond were married in Caddo, Louisiana, on December 1st, 1956. They had 3 children, 2 of them sons, both of them second cousins to the top match Tanea. I'm giving one of the sons a fake name. One son was named Michael Jefferson, and the other son was Rick Jefferson. Both sons had lived in Denver, at least one of them living there in the 1980s. Based on both DNA and geographic vectors, therefore, either Rick or Michael could have been the killer. But Rick was already in CODIS after various drug convictions. Remember, the killer's DNA had been uploaded to CODIS in 2003, and in 17 years of searches, it had never generated a hit to anyone in the database. The DNA from the Dean crime scene never matched to anyone in the violent offender databases could not have come from Rick. That left Michael. Douglas County investigators, including Detective Mark O'Harold, who was assigned the case on January 9, 2021, immediately began researching Michael Jefferson, a black male who was 5'10", 199 pounds, according to his former Colorado driver's license. From records that miraculously still existed, they learned that Jefferson had registered 4 firearms with the Denver PD between the dates of February 7th, 1985 and June 13th, 1985. These were a Colt, a Cobra, a Minshan, which was a Chinese assault rifle, and an Uzi submachine gun. Not only did this confirm that he had access to and was comfortable with guns, but it placed Jefferson in the Denver area in 1985. NCIC and other databases also indicated that Jefferson had 6 arrests ranging from August 26, 1989 to December 18, 1993 for charges like traffic offenses, disturbing the peace, false information, and trespass. According to a police affidavit, quote, "It's known through records that on August 3, 1990, Michael was issued a citation by the Denver PD for 2 criminal offenses. Michael would most likely have been in Colorado when the letters were mailed," end quote. Furthermore, Jefferson was definitely a flight risk, as the Department of Homeland Security notified Douglas County investigators that Jefferson had an extensive international travel history. Get this, between January 1st, 2018 and February 10th, 2021, he had taken 44 international flights to or from Shanghai, Hong Kong, Amsterdam, Paris, Chile, Spain, Reykjavik, Dublin, Panama, London, and other locations. the Department of Homeland Security agreed to place a silent hit on any international travel for Jefferson and would notify the DCSO 3 days prior to a flight that he was booked on.
Now I'd like to introduce you to Meaningful Beauty, the famed skincare brand created by iconic supermodel Cindy Crawford. It's her secret to absolutely gorgeous skin. Meaningful Beauty makes powerful and effective skincare simple, and it's loved by millions of women. It's formulated for all ages and all skin tones and types, and it's designed to work as a complete skincare system, leaving your skin feeling soft, smooth, and nourished. I recommend starting with Cindy's full regimen, which contains all 5 of her best-selling products, including the amazing youth-activating melon serum. This next-generation serum has the power of melon leaf stem cell technology. It's melon leaf stem cells encapsulated for freshness and released onto the skin to support a visible reduction in the appearance of wrinkles. With thousands of glowing 5-star reviews, why not give it a try? Subscribe today and you can get the amazing Meaningful Beauty system for just $49.95. That includes our introductory 5-piece system, free gifts, free shipping, and a 60-day money-back guarantee. All of that available at meaningfulbeauty.com.
Ever wonder why you have insurance for your car or home, but not your digital life? Meet WebRoot Total Protection, your digital bodyguard that is built for real life. WebRoot takes the guessing game out of cybersecurity, so you can confidently browse, bank, and be yourself online without the worry of hackers lurking around the corner. With WebRoot Total Protection, you get antivirus that scans 6 times faster and takes up 33 times less space than the other guys. Identity protection with up to $1 million in fraud expense reimbursement and 24/7 US-based customer support. VPN protection that hides your IP address, personal data, and location from hackers. And cloud backup with unlimited storage that works automatically in the background. With plans for individuals and families, WebRoot makes it easy to live a better digital life. Go to webroot.com/promo and get 50% off today. That's webroot.com/promo to get 50% off today. Live a better digital life with WebRoot, because peace of mind shouldn't be optional.
It is Ryan Seacrest here. There was a recent social media trend which consisted of flying on a plane with no music, no movies, no entertainment. But a better trend would be going to ChumbaCasino.com. It's like having a mini social casino in your pocket. Chumba Casino has over 100 online casino-style games, all absolutely free. It's the most fun you can have online and on a plane. So grab your free welcome bonus now at ChumbaCasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
The investigators obtained information on addresses frequented by Michael Jefferson. His home address was 631 North Scott Street in New Orleans. However, he'd been stopped on August 20th, 2020, by the LAPD in that city. At the time, he was driving a vehicle registered to his sister-in-law, his brother's wife, who lived in Norwalk, California. The detectives also learned that Jefferson's sister lived in Los Angeles on West 109th Place. Jefferson apparently bounced back and forth between his own place in Louisiana and his relatives' homes in LA. But still, even though they sent out surveillance teams, they couldn't find Jefferson. So, the Douglas County Sheriff's Office folks contacted law enforcement agencies in New Orleans, LA, and Norwalk, and requested the use of pole cameras so they could monitor the addresses he was associated with. Pole cameras were installed on each block, in positions where the front door to the address could be monitored. They didn't turn up any footage of Jefferson for weeks until finally, on February 13th, 2021, at 8:04 a.m., Michelle Kennedy reviewed the pole camera footage from 631 West 109th Place. In the video, she saw a man who looked like Michael Jefferson leaving the residence. He was the same person from the body cam footage from the traffic stop of Michael Jefferson in August 2020, and the same man she'd been checking out in Jefferson family Facebook videos for weeks. Jefferson got into a black Chevy Cruze registered to Raymond Jefferson, his deceased father. Douglas County investigators provided Sergeant Yanez of the LAPD the information on the vehicle and the license plate. Then they learned from a Denver International Airport law enforcement liaison he was booked on an upcoming domestic round-trip flight from LAX to New Orleans on his airline of choice, Spirit, on February 14th, returning on February 17th. This is all taken directly from the probable cause affidavit. Quote, on February 17, 2021, at around 6:50 p.m. Central Time, Sergeant Joel White and Detective Trindle with the Douglas County Sheriff's Office were waiting at the gate where Spirit Airlines Flight 955 was scheduled to depart. Sergeant White and Detective Trindle were provided with photographs of Michael Jefferson and were able to positively identify him sitting at the gate. Detective Trindle and Sergeant White boarded the same Spirit Airlines flight as Michael. Sergeant White was seated across from Michael, and Detective Trindle was seated near the back of the plane. During the flight, detectives saw Michael drinking from a plastic water bottle. He discarded the water bottle by handing it to a female flight attendant to be placed in the trash. Detectives intercepted the disposal and collected the water bottle without Michael knowing, and the item was booked into evidence upon their return." End quote. I wonder how often this happens on domestic flights. I'm going to be watching the flight attendants a lot more closely from now on. Anyway, Detective O'Harold provided the water bottle to the Colorado Bureau of Investigations for testing at their lab. By February 23rd, he had a report stating that the lab analyst was able to develop a DNA profile from the water bottle and compare it to the profile developed from the ski mask swab. Quote, "The YSTR profile developed from the swab from the mouth area of the ski mask is consistent with the YSTR profile developed from the water bottle. Therefore, the source of the YSTR profile from the water bottle and all of his paternal male relatives are not excluded as potential donors to this sample." End quote. Michael Jefferson's father, Raymond, was too old to be the suspect, and his brother Rick was already in CODIS. By process of elimination, Michael was the suspect. Furthermore, Detective White had overheard Jefferson speaking with another passenger on the Spirit Airlines flight. He listened to the tapes made by the FBI back in 1990 of the phone calls made by the extortionist to DJ Dean, and confirmed that the voice was consistent with the one he had heard on the plane. It was time to obtain an arrest warrant for Michael Jefferson. The affidavit of probable cause by Detective Mark O'Harold states that, based on the totality of the circumstances, probable cause exists to believe that Michael Jefferson was in the Denver area on November 21st, 1985. He confronted Roger at his residence between 6:45 and 7:30 a.m. He was wearing a ski mask to conceal his identity and ordered Roger into the residence at gunpoint. He ordered Roger to summon his wife, Doris, and forced Roger to blindfold and secure Doris. Then Jefferson secured Roger and took items from the residence and placed them in the backpack that he'd brought. Jefferson moved Roger to another room and secured him in the same manner as Doris had been restrained. Roger attempted to flee and struggled with Jefferson. Roger was able to remove the ski mask from Michael's face, and it was left on scene, leading to a DNA profile being developed. Michael shot Roger 5 times in the abdomen, killing him, and fled the scene. While running to his car, he was seen by Carly. The physical description she gave is similar to Jefferson. Further, the voice on the tapes is consistent with the voice that Detective Sergeant Joel White heard on the Spirit Airlines flight. End quote. The warrant for Michael Jefferson's arrest for murder in the first degree and kidnapping was signed by Judge Patricia Haynor on March 17, 2021. I don't have a ton of details on the actual arrest of Michael Jefferson that took place on March 22nd. The investigators learned that he had a trip scheduled out of the country to the Dominican Republic. Douglas County investigators worked with the LAPD, and they and Sheriff Tony Spurlock himself flew to LA and enacted a ruse in order to arrest Jefferson. They pulled him over around 5 a.m. in Compton as he was riding in an Uber on the way to the airport. Other than no doubt frightening the bejesus out of the Uber driver, the arrest went down without incident. The investigators did not identify themselves as being from Colorado. They told Jefferson he was being arrested as part of an investigation into a drive-by shooting in the LA area. Remember that they knew he had registered 4 guns, including some assault rifles, when he lived in Denver. Jefferson complied with the arrest and was told he could ask questions down at the station. Once Jefferson was in custody, back in Colorado, Captain Weekly drove to the home where Tammy was living and knocked on her door. "We got him," he said. Tammy later said that she was speechless. So who is Michael Jefferson? Michael Chanel Jefferson was born on March 26, 1957, to parents Raymond Jefferson and Christine Brown Jefferson. He graduated from high school in Los Angeles in 1974 and then moved to Denver, where he had multiple addresses in the 1980s, 90s, and 2000s. He attended and graduated from college there with a degree in psychology. He was 28 years old when he killed Roger Dean. It was hard for the investigators to nail down many details about Jefferson's life, including what he was doing for money. According to the Denver Gazette, Jefferson worked various jobs, including as a pharmacist assistant and as an investigator with the Colorado Department of Regulatory Agencies, known as DORA, an oversight organization for medical practitioners. Detective O'Harold told me that in this role, Jefferson interviewed doctors for licensing requirements. He was very comfortable interacting with people and was somewhat savvy about legal processes. A co-worker of Jefferson's at Dora told Detective O'Harold that Jefferson was eventually fired because he was accessing unauthorized financial information on the computers or in the databases he had access to. By the time Jefferson was arrested, he was collecting Social Security, he had a small pension from his job for Dora in Colorado, he was doing odd jobs and handyman work, and he was fixing up and flipping houses with his brother Rick. Jefferson would later tell the Douglas County investigators in an interview when they asked about all his overseas travels that you could live like a king in these other countries, and he made reference to lots of women. In a search of his home in Louisiana, which was more like a shack, the investigators found ultrasound photos of babies born to women overseas, presumably children of Jefferson's, and they learned of a woman in the Philippines with whom he had 2 kids. In the U.S., Michael married a woman named Mary C. on September 25, 1993 in Denver. They were divorced in Louisiana in 2007. From this marriage, Jefferson had a son who is now an adult. I mentioned a search of Jefferson's home pursuant to a search warrant. Investigators were looking for anything connecting him to the murder of Roger Dean. They didn't find anything, but they did find a printed letter Jefferson had emailed and copied himself on in 2007. The letter was written to his ex-wife, his son, and his stepdaughter, and contained a passage about his youth that read, quote, "I spent time with the hoods and the delinquents, and before I knew it, stealing and robbing were my daily occupations," end quote. It's not a confession, but Jefferson admitted to robbing and stealing. The motive investigators still believe was behind the murder of Roger Dean. At the police station in Los Angeles, Jefferson waived his rights and spoke with the Douglas County investigators. He was eager to make his plain and asked what was going on. The investigators pretended they were there about a gun charge. They had to go into the interview not knowing much about Jefferson, as he was a private citizen with not much of a record and not many personal connections known to the police. And Jefferson didn't initially know that his interviewers were from Colorado and what they were really there for. Jefferson came across as an educated man who was experienced in the interviewing process from his time working for Dora, and he was calm, cooperative, and cool as a cucumber. He referenced books, travel, his life philosophy, and so on. The investigators talked to him about his extensive travel, and this was when he told them that even without a lot of money, he could live like a king in some foreign lands. Then they asked Jefferson about guns he owned. He said he had owned a bunch of them, but he dumped them in Lake Pontchartrain, I definitely mispronounced that, after Hurricane Katrina because they all rusted out. Then they started to ask him about the time when he lived in Colorado. When the detectives started asking about the Dean crime, I've been told that Jefferson talked in circles and really didn't give much up. When shown photos of the Dean house and Roger and DJ, he said he had no idea who they were. When told the investigators were really there about a robbery in Douglas County, Colorado, he said he didn't know anything about a robbery and denied having anything to do with it. He was shown a photo of the ski mask, whereupon he said, "I never wore a ski mask, I don't ski." But he did acknowledge that, quote, "If you've got my DNA, you've got my DNA." And he admitted that Tammy looked familiar to him, although he claimed not to recall why. He also felt that the folding knife in the photos looked familiar. But the detectives never said anything about a murder. Detective O'Harold baited Jefferson, saying, "I know you were at that house." And Jefferson said, "I wasn't at that house, and now you're saying there's a shooting." Oops. Next, Detective O'Harold took the approach of, look, Roger Dean was a philanderer. He was skimming money from his company. He was basically throwing Roger under the bus, minimizing the crime, hoping Jefferson would feel he wasn't in that big trouble and would confess. But he didn't, and eventually, after 4 hours, they ended it. Jefferson wasn't giving them any more, and he was somewhat skillfully attempting to pry information out of the investigators. He never asked for a lawyer. The detectives felt that, although they hadn't gotten much out of Jefferson, they had also successfully locked him into a story that was irreconcilable with the DNA evidence. If Jefferson were really smart, he would have said, "Oh yeah, I loaned that backpack to a friend. Maybe they left it at the Dean's home. Oh yes, I owned a ski mask like that, but it was stolen." Instead, Jefferson claimed that he was never there, he didn't own a ski mask, he had never seen a backpack like that, lies which the DNA evidence proved false. Not to mention, of course, that he slipped up and referenced a shooting when no one had mentioned one at all. Jefferson was extradited to Colorado in April 2021. On April 9th, the Douglas County authorities held a press conference announcing the arrest at long last of the man who had perpetrated an infamous crime in their jurisdiction. At the presser, District Attorney John Kellner urged anyone who knew the suspect in the 1980s or had information about the case to call in tips. And someone did. Within days of the press conference, a tip was called in to the tip line by a woman named Nancy. Nancy was one of Roger Dean's secretaries at the time of his murder. Nancy had been briefly interviewed in 1985 and said at the time she had been employed by Cecil Dean for approximately a year and 8 months. She worked closely with Roger, whom she said had been in a bad mood on November 19, 1985. On the 20th, the day before the murder, she called in sick and didn't work, but she believed Roger had left early that day. Nancy knew Roger and Linda F. were seeing each other. She didn't like Linda and didn't want to believe it, but it had been going on for months. And that was the extent of Nancy's information in 1985. No one thought to ask her any more penetrating questions. Now, in 2021, she had bombshell information for the investigators. Back in 1985, she was dating Michael Jefferson. They were in a relationship off and on for years, even traveling together. Nancy had saved photos of her and Michael and handed them over to the investigators. There was the connection that had eluded the investigators for more than 30 years, the connection between Michael Jefferson and Roger Dean.
Now I'd like to introduce you to Meaningful Beauty, the famed skincare brand created by iconic supermodel Cindy Crawford. It's her secret to absolutely gorgeous skin. Meaningful Beauty makes powerful and effective skincare simple, and it's loved by millions of women. It's formulated for all ages and all skin tones and types, and it's designed to work as a complete skincare system, leaving your skin feeling soft, smooth, and nourished. I recommend starting with Cindy's full regimen, which contains all 5 of her best-selling products, including the amazing youth-activating Melon Serum. This next-generation serum has the power of melon leaf stem cell technology. It's melon leaf stem cells encapsulated for freshness and released onto the skin to support a visible reduction in the appearance of wrinkles. With thousands of glowing 5-star reviews, why not give it a try? Subscribe today and you can get the amazing Meaningful Beauty system for just $49.95. That includes our introductory 5-piece system, free gifts, free shipping, and a 60-day money-back guarantee. All of that available at meaningfulbeauty.com.
Ever wonder why you have insurance for your car or home, but not your digital life? Meet WebRoot Total Protection, your digital bodyguard that is built for real life. WebRoot takes the guessing game out of cybersecurity, so you can confidently browse, bank, and be yourself online without the worry of hackers lurking around the corner. With WebRoot Total Protection, you get antivirus that scans 6 times faster and takes up 33 times less space than the other guys. Identity protection with up to $1 million in fraud expense reimbursement and 24/7 US-based customer support. VPN protection that hides your IP address, personal data, and location from hackers. And cloud backup with unlimited storage that works automatically in the background. With plans for individuals and families, WebRoot makes it easy to live a better digital life. Go to webroot.com/promo and get 50% off today. That's webroot.com/promo to get 50% off today. Live a better digital life with WebRoot, because peace of mind shouldn't be optional.
It is Ryan Seacrest here. There was a recent social media trend which consisted of flying on a plane with no music, no movies, no entertainment. But a better trend would be going to ChumbaCasino.com. It's like having a mini social casino in your pocket. Chumba Casino has over 100 online casino-style games, all absolutely free. It's the most fun you can have online and on a plane. So grab your free welcome bonus now at ChumbaCasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
When Detective O'Harold interviewed Nancy in 2021, she was initially a little apprehensive, trying to think back 30 years. She said she was one of 5 secretaries assigned to Roger, and she acknowledged that she had talked with her long-term boyfriend at the time, Michael Jefferson, about Roger, the Deans, their grand home, how the family dressed, their 5 cars, vacations, jewelry, all of it. Jefferson was wily enough to quietly take in the information about Roger's financial habits and tendencies and not give away to Nancy what he was planning. When Roger was killed, it never occurred to Nancy to even consider for a second that her boyfriend could have been involved. She recalled no reaction on his part, and looking back, she of course had no idea what he had been up to on November 21st, 1985. Nancy said Jefferson was secretive, and he didn't like her asking questions about his activities. She sensed that he was cheating on her, and that's what finally ended their long-term relationship. Detectives noted with interest that the final extortion call believed to come from Michael Jefferson was placed from a payphone that was located within a half mile of Nancy's apartment in the summer of 1990. Okay, now for the legal proceedings against Jefferson. He was held without bond in the Douglas County Jail. The complaint initiating his criminal case alleged that on November 21st, 1985, Michael Chanel Jefferson committed murder in the first degree by unlawfully, feloniously, and after deliberation, and with intent to cause the death of a person other than himself, causing the death of Roger Dean. A second charge of first-degree murder alleged that Jefferson committed or attempted to commit burglary and in the course of or in furtherance of the crime or immediate flight therefrom caused the death of Roger Dean. A third count was first-degree kidnapping, alleging that Jefferson unlawfully and feloniously imprisoned or forcefully secreted Roger Dean with the intent to force the victim or another person to make a concession in order to secure the release of the victim. Jefferson pleaded not guilty to the charges in 2022. The long road to trial commenced, with a string of trial dates set and then vacated or continued. Finally, a scheduled date for trial in August of 2024 was vacated for good. As it was announced, a plea agreement had been reached between the defendant and the 18th and 23rd Judicial District Attorney's offices. I know, a plea agreement. They had this guy dead to rights. Why would they give him a plea deal? Well, let me explain. It's shocking, so I hope you're sitting down. In October 2023, the state of Colorado was rocked by a devastating scandal within the Colorado Bureau of Investigation. A DNA analyst in the CBI lab had compromised 1,003 cases by altering, manipulating, or deleting test data. According to Denver 7, an internal investigation by the CBI revealed that Yvonne Missy Woods deliberately omitted material facts in official criminal justice records, tampered with DNA testing results by omitting some results, and violated CBI's code of conduct and CBI lab policies by cutting corners and covering it up. Needless to say, Woods was fired, but extremely unfortunately, she was a senior analyst who had been in her job for almost 30 years. So the fallout from her misconduct was extensive. She had handled more than 10,700 cases in nearly 3 decades of work. And as I said, 1,003 of those were found to have anomalies or irregularities in analyses and procedures. Shockingly, CBS reported that the CBI had received reports from colleagues of Woods' about issues with her work in both 2014 and 2018, but she continued to work unfettered at the lab. The state of Colorado allocated millions of dollars to cover the costs of remedying this disaster. Every report Woods issued had to be re-examined, and hundreds of criminal prosecutions and convictions were called into question. Funds had to be earmarked for retesting of physical evidence and retrying defendants who were awarded new trials because of the manipulated data. More than a year after her malfeasance was exposed, in January 2025, Missy Woods was arrested. This is from a January 22, 2025 DA's office release. Golden, Colorado. District Attorney Alexis King announced today that Yvonne Missy Woods has been charged with 102 counts related to 58 instances of alleged criminal misconduct committed between 2008 and 2023 during her career as a forensic laboratory scientist at the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, or CBI. Woods was employed by CBI from January 1994 to November 2023, during which she worked at 2 lab locations in Jefferson County within the 1st Judicial District. 1st Judicial District Attorney's Office Chief Investigator Wagner submitted a warrant for the arrest of Woods on suspicion of the following charges. Count 1, cybercrime. Count 2, perjury in the first degree. Counts 3 to 50, attempt to influence a public servant. And counts 51 to 102, forgery. The investigation revealed evidence of instances where Woods altered and deleted quantification values, reran entire batches of DNA multiple times without any documentation, and concealed possible contamination. Additionally, the affidavit alleges that in over 30 sexual assault cases, Woods deleted specific values in samples and submitted reports to agencies that reflected no male DNA found, when in fact small amounts of male DNA were present and or possible contamination was present, and additional troubleshooting and retesting was required. Through the end of 2024, the CBI estimated that the fiscal costs due to Woods' alleged misconduct was $11,071,486, end quote. Wow, what an unholy mess. Of course, I'm addressing all this because one of those cases called into question was the case against Michael Jefferson. Missy Woods had been the analyst who tested Jefferson's airplane water bottle against the swabs from the ski mask left at the Roger Dean crime scene. But even though a private lab had confirmed Woods' findings, burned by the Woods scandal, the prosecutor's office felt that it would be too risky to take the Jefferson case to trial. That would inevitably involve defense-driven testimony about compromised data, even though Woods' testing was verified by an independent lab to make sure the results pointing to Jefferson were accurate. And Woods could not be called to testify about her findings because she was not a credible witness. They couldn't risk calling into doubt the DNA evidence before the jury because the case against Jefferson rested almost entirely on the DNA evidence. The defense was amenable to a plea deal, and it would resolve the whole embarrassing situation. I'd like to point out here that Missy Woods was not the analyst who swabbed the ski mask and obtained the original DNA that was both entered into CODIS and used to obtain a SNP profile for the IgG. But she had sent swabs from the ski mask to Parabon for the SNP profile, and she had tested the water bottle against the profile and evidence. Therefore, Woods' work had provided the confirmation that had been grounds for probable cause to arrest. So proceeding to trial could have opened up a massive can of worms. By agreeing on a plea deal, at least the state would obtain a conviction, justice for Roger, and some prison time for Jefferson. So in light of all this, the district attorney in the newly created 23rd Judicial District, George Brockler, had no choice but to offer the deal, even though he did not like it. The prosecutors sat down with Tammy to apprise her of their decision, and she later said she had no choice but to acquiesce, even though she desperately wanted a trial and was unhappy about the deal. This from the Denver Gazette. Quote, "This case was a case headed to trial before the Missy Woods issue came to light," George Brockler, the district attorney for the 23rd Judicial District, told the Denver Gazette earlier this week. He called the decision to offer the plea deal 100% frustrating. On the other side of the coin, with the plea deal being offered, Michael Jefferson's defense attorney, Michael Fay, didn't want to gamble on a trial either. He had also hired a third-party lab to retest the DNA evidence against his client at a cost of $19,000. And the results had again corroborated Missy Woods' findings. Plus, additional testing by the state had confirmed Jefferson's DNA not only on the ski mask, but on the backpack left at the scene. That was big news and damning for Jefferson. Fay's client was facing life in prison if convicted. The plea deal was too good to pass up. Again from the Denver Gazette, quote, "Fay added that his client did not want to take the plea deal because he insists he is innocent. I lose sleep over taking the plea. I know Michael does for sure. He is very much adamant that he didn't do this. If this was up to him, he would turn this into an exoneration hearing." Fay added that there was no motive, no evidence Jefferson was ever near Dean, and he had no affiliation with the victim. There were alternate suspects, he said, but the defense attorney said he knew the DNA evidence would be damning because juries love DNA, end quote. So, a plea deal it was. A plea agreement was filed on August 6, 2024. The state dismissed the murder and kidnapping charges and added Count 4, conspiracy to commit murder in the first degree, with a sentence enhancer, Count 5, crime of violence. The agreement stated that on or about November 21, 1985, Michael Chanel Jefferson, with the intent to promote or facilitate the commission of the crime of murder in the first degree, unlawfully and feloniously agreed with a person or persons, to the district attorney unknown, that one or more of them would engage in conduct which constituted that crime or an attempt to commit that crime, or agreed to aid the other person or persons in the planning or commission or attempted commission of that crime, and an overt act in pursuance of the conspiracy was committed by one or more of the co-conspirators in violation of, and then the relevant statute. The new Count 5 crime of violence said on or about November 21st, 1985, Michael Chanel Jefferson, during the attempted commission of conspiracy to commit or immediate flight from the crime of conspiracy to commit murder in the first degree, as charged in Count 4, unlawfully caused the death of Roger Dean, a person not a participant in the crime, in violation of the relevant statute. The sentencing recommendation set forth in the agreement was 16 to 32 years, at the discretion of the judge. At the sentencing hearing on January 16, 2025, Tammy addressed the court with a victim impact statement. She said, "I never gave up hope that one day justice would come. They say justice delayed is justice denied. What I remember most is Dad's tender, compassionate heart that overflowed with support and encouragement just when you needed it most." She recounted the facts of the crime and continued, quote, Trying to put into words the impact that Michael Jefferson has had on me is challenging at best. He not only ended my dad's existence, but over the years, he purposefully attempted to make me question my safety and security, as well as the inherent goodness of people." End quote. At a press conference immediately following the sentencing, Tammy said, quote, "I was hoping for some kind of remorse, but I have been sitting behind him for 4 years. His expression is exactly what it was the entire time today. He seems emotionless. He doesn't take any accountability. He doesn't seem like he cares. He could have done a lot for me and a lot for himself if he would have just talked about why he did what he did and offered an apology at least, or a recognition. Anything at all would have been helpful. I have no respect for the person at all." End quote. I know you're all wondering whether DJ Dean also gave a victim impact statement and addressed the media. The answer is no. She did not survive to see Roger's killer named. She died in 2020, 7 months before the IgG analysis identified Jefferson. Tammy said of her mom in court, quote, "Given trial delays and the debacle with the recent DNA scandal in the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, I think it's a good thing Mom wasn't here to witness this. If she wasn't already dead, this process would have killed her. There is no price tag, no way for him to pay the debt he owes my family. The only thing he can give now is his freedom." The sentencing hearing included a number of speakers who were permitted to address the court. There was a sense that fairness and justice required that many be afforded the opportunity to speak their minds, and the judge permitted a lengthy list of people to come to the lectern. At least 6 people pleaded with the judge to give Jefferson the max, which was 32 years. This from Denver 7, quote, "In court Thursday, sheriffs that span Douglas County's history spoke about how the office continued to pursue the case over the decades, as Jefferson flew all over the world, raised children, and grew a business until his arrest. 23rd District Attorney George Brockler, who had been in the position for barely 48 hours, stated that Jefferson did not have a history of substance abuse, was not a gang member, and was holding down a job. Therefore, Jefferson knew better," he stressed. Of course, we already heard about Tammy's comments, but also permitted to speak was Carly, now an adult woman with children. She was truly vindicated when Michael Jefferson was arrested, and she was proven right all those years ago. No one had believed that she had properly identified Roger's killer as a black man, and her report was discounted. Carly told the court when she heard of Jefferson's arrest, she was relieved. She recounted her recall of the murder in court. She said she could still remember Roger calling for help, bleeding through his shirt, and collapsing on the ground outside his home. She watched Jefferson escape, she told the courtroom. She saw Mrs. Dean screaming, quote, "All of this for a 9-year-old brain to process," she said. This from the Denver Gazette. Carly Gibson, now a mother herself, was so overwhelmed by the intensity of the courtroom that she nearly fainted, and people rushed to help her regain her breath. "I witnessed the murder. I became a victim," she said. She told the courtroom about her anxiety after deputies discounted her insistence that the suspect she watched speed away in his car was a black man. The police report referenced a white man, which she called inaction of deputies. Her life has been altered because no one believed her. "Mr. Jefferson became my own personal boogeyman," said Gibson, end quote. Former Sheriff Tony Spurlock, whose career at the Douglas County Sheriff's Office had spanned the Dean case from its initial occurrence through the arrest of Michael Jefferson, also addressed the court. He apologized to Carly Gibson for the failure of his agency to give any credit to her as a witness, saying, quote, "Somehow, somebody, somewhere, decided to look through her window and say, 'Nope, that's a white man.'" Carly cried as he spoke. Spurlock then admitted in court, quote, "We spent too much time looking at DJ and Tammy and not looking at the true killer." He told the Denver Gazette about Jefferson's arrest, quote, "He felt solace because there was a time when he suspected DJ Jean in her husband's murder, often questioning her." More from the Denver Gazette. Spurlock, who served 2 terms as Douglas County Sheriff before he retired in 2022, sat with Tammy at the sentencing. He was permitted to speak in court and make a pitch for a stricter sentence than called for by the plea agreement. He said, "I do not think that's justice for the murder of Roger Dean. The victim's family is left hanging out on the edge. I know they are disappointed." Jefferson's defense attorney tried to impress upon the judge that his client was an upstanding citizen, despite the Dean incident, which was an anomaly, he said. Other than that, Jefferson had a completely clean criminal record in his 67 years. Faye said Jefferson was a well-behaved kid who never got into trouble. He worked hard in school, worked in the medical field, taught GED classes, and was a world traveler. He was a good father to his children and had built a business for them. 20 letters of support had been submitted to the judge on Jefferson's behalf. They were not permitted to be read in court, but Faye claimed they were from doctors, lawyers, coaches, and engineers. Finally, Jefferson was a model prisoner who was something of a peacemaker in jail, Faye claimed. And his client had taken responsibility for the crime by pleading guilty. He asked the judge to sentence Jefferson to the low end of the range at 16 years. Last but not least, Jefferson addressed the court, saying, quote, "During all of my 67 years, I have complied with the laws. In regards to the tragic loss of Mr. Dean's life and the pain and grief the family has suffered, I can only imagine their hunger for justice and closure. That's something I would feel too. It is my hope that my plea brings the family some measure of peace and closure." End quote. Sure you do. Then it was Judge Victoria Klingensmith's turn to speak. She told Tammy she was sorry for her, losing her father to murder and her mother before she could see the case's conclusion. She apologized to Carly for the trauma she experienced as a 9-year-old witnessing a murder. She then turned to Jefferson and said it was inexplicable how someone so seemingly well-liked and respected, someone who was a productive member of the community, could have committed such a heinous crime at age 28. She told him that she had looked to him for signs of remorse or accountability, but she saw none, and his comments indicated he didn't really accept responsibility. She then sentenced Jefferson to 32 years in prison, the maximum allowed under the plea agreement, with credit for 1,382 days' time already served. The Denver Gazette reported that after the sentencing, Jefferson's adult son Julian sought out Tammy and offered his congratulations, saying, "I'm happy for you." District Attorney George Brockler vented at a press conference after the sentencing. He said he was ready to go to trial and send Jefferson to prison for eternity, but the story of the mishandling of the DNA evidence emerged. Proceeding to trial would have been an unacceptable risk. We could not take the risk that he would walk free, Brockler explained. Brockler said the judge got it right. She saw the crime for what it was, a horrible act of selfishness and evil. She saw the lack of accountability and lack of remorse. Quote, "I'll be honest, this guy deserved to die in prison. He deserved life in prison. He might even have been eligible for the death penalty back in the day," Brockler said. But even though the judge sentenced Jefferson to the max, Brockler said it still wasn't enough. And that was because of the ruinous actions of Missy Woods at the CBI lab. Quote, "The great irony of this case is the DNA that brought him into this courtroom should have been enough," Brockler said. "But the person who processed it was so flawed and broken, and her name is Missy Woods, that she presented such a risk that we have already had to bake in extra mercy for him. We had to put him into a position where no matter what this court says today, he could be paroled in his mid-70s, and that is awful," end quote. Well, the media picked up on that quote quickly and asked Brockler to expound on the parole thing, and he went into a rant about how the Department of Corrections policies could free Jefferson way too early. He explained that a sentence for a nonviolent crime, such as the one Jefferson pled to, conspiracy, is discounted 50% right off the bat. Plus, he got credit for time served, about 4 years. So 32 years cut in half, plus 4 years time served, plus earned time, which Brockler said sarcastically, you get simply for drawing breath. He said on average, people in these circumstances obtain parole after about 35% of their sentence is completed, which means it is possible that Michael Jefferson could be paroled in as little as 8 years. 8 years. Jefferson's next parole hearing date is set for October 2036.
Now I'd like to introduce you to Meaningful Beauty, the famed skincare brand created by iconic supermodel Cindy Crawford. It's her secret to absolutely gorgeous skin. Meaningful Beauty makes powerful and effective skincare simple, and it's loved by millions of women. It's formulated for all ages and all skin tones and types, and it's designed to work as a complete skincare system, leaving your skin feeling soft, smooth, and nourished. I recommend starting with Cindy's full regimen, which contains all 5 of her best-selling products, including the amazing youth-activating melanin Melon Serum. This next-generation serum has the power of melon leaf stem cell technology. It's melon leaf stem cells encapsulated for freshness and released onto the skin to support a visible reduction in the appearance of wrinkles. With thousands of glowing 5-star reviews, why not give it a try? Subscribe today and you can get the amazing Meaningful Beauty system for just $49.95. That includes our introductory 5-piece system, free gifts, free shipping, and a 60-day money-back guarantee. All of that available at meaningfulbeauty.com.
Ever wonder why you have insurance for your car or home, but not your digital life? Meet WebRoot Total Protection, your digital bodyguard that is built for real life. WebRoot takes the guessing game out of cybersecurity so you can confidently browse, bank, and be yourself online without the worry of hackers lurking around the corner. With WebRoot Total Protection, you get antivirus that scans 6 times faster and takes up 33 times less space than the other guys. Identity protection with up to $1 million in fraud expense reimbursement and 24/7 US-based customer support. VPN protection that hides your IP address, personal data, and location from hackers. And cloud backup with unlimited storage that works automatically in the background. With plans for individuals and families, WebRoot makes it easy to live a better digital life. Go to webroot.com/promo and get 50% off today. That's webroot.com/promo to get 50% off today. Live a better digital life with WebRoot, because peace of mind shouldn't be optional.
It is Ryan Seacrest here. There was a recent social media trend which consisted of flying on a plane with no music, no movies, no entertainment. But a better trend would be going to ChumbaCasino.com. It's like having a mini social casino in your pocket. Chumba Casino has over 100 online casino-style games, all absolutely free. It's the most fun you can have online and on a plane. So grab your free welcome bonus now at ChumbaCasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
The current Douglas County Sheriff Darren Weekly told the media that his agency was prepared for trial thanks to the efforts of the detectives and Michelle Kennedy. He said, quote, "We have some justice in this case because of their great work. They never gave up. I am grateful the judge imposed the max sentence allowed under the law." He pointed out that had Michael Jefferson been arrested in 1985, he would have been eligible for the death penalty. Former Sheriff Michael Acree spoke eloquently about the impact the case had on him. Quote, "On that morning, I was a captain in charge of the investigations division. I answered a call by dispatch of shots fired, man down. I arrived to see a horrific, horrid crime scene. Roger Dean was lying at the end of his driveway in the gutter, bleeding to death. I tried to administer first aid immediately. Through my experience, I knew it would not work. Castlewood Fire EMTs felt they may have a pulse and worked on him. My partner went to the female who was tied up, had duct tape on her eyes. When the officer took the tape off her eyes, the scream I heard I will never, ever forget. I retired, but I sometimes drive through the area, and it always bothered me." Acree said it was better than winning the lottery when he learned it was solved. Quote, "Those things you do not forget, what you saw, heard, smelled. When I cleared the house, there was a black bag with duct tape and rope, shell casings, bullets, and blood. This was not a burglary that went wrong. Had we solved it, it would have been a death penalty case." End quote. Tony Spurlock came up with a large photo of Roger Dean and said this was all about him. DJ didn't live long enough to receive justice. Jefferson went there, he killed Roger, and he destroyed the Dean family. I was the original responder on the case and had the pleasure of going to LA to arrest Mr. Jefferson. I hope that he spends all of those 32 years at the Department of Corrections. Here are some more excerpts from Tammy's comments at the post-conviction press conference. She said, "I can't tell you how relieved I am that after almost 40 years, we are finally there today with a sentence of 32 years. Notice she said relieved, not happy. She continued, "I'm very sorry that it wasn't the full life in prison, but I'm grateful for all the work that's been done to get us where we are here today and to remember my dad. He did not deserve the end he had. My family didn't deserve to go through everything that they did. Hugely disappointed that he did not get life in prison." The prosecutors weren't happy with the outcome either. They released a statement saying, quote, "This case, this investigation, is tainted by the work of one individual from CBI. While some of her work helped solve this case, it most certainly also forced it to resolve. And to resolve with a plea agreement that fails in many ways to hold the defendant accountable, accountable for his actions against the Dean family, his actions against the community. I know you're all wondering why the prosecutors didn't charge Michael Jefferson for the extortion. Everyone believed that Jefferson had indeed been the one to terrorize DJ and Tammy through letters and phone calls, trying to extort money out of them purely out of greed. Detective O'Harold told me that Jefferson, who has a degree in psychology, used his training to instill fear and intimidation in Tammy and DJ. He reminded them constantly in live, sometimes random phone calls extended over weeks, and letters typed in all caps, that he had killed Roger and would do it again. The extortion plot, 5 years after Roger's death, was something that seemed to mesh with Jefferson's manipulative and ruthless personality. But also, investigators looking into Jefferson's ties to the area discovered that his aunt worked at the hospital from which one of the calls was made. And remember that another call originated at a phone booth near his then-girlfriend Nancy's apartment. And finally, the investigators who flew with Jefferson on the plane and heard him speaking recognized his voice from the tapes from the extortion phone calls. So why wasn't he charged? There are really two answers. One, saliva recovered in 2021 by the CBI on the envelopes sent to Tammy and DJ failed to yield any usable DNA. Fingerprints were not successfully obtained from the envelopes or letters either. So there was no physical evidence linking Michael Jefferson to the letters. But the real reason Jefferson wasn't charged was because the statute of limitations on the extortion had expired. They couldn't prosecute him for that crime because time had run out. So let's talk about the elephant in the room. Whether Roger colluded with Michael Jefferson to set up the robbery for the benefit of both of them. Roger was said by many people to be upstanding, to have a strong moral code. Yet, he was having an affair and double-dipping into the company's funds to squirrel away a private nest egg. The company was not doing as well as it should have been, which is why Roger was having a hard time selling it. His financial concerns were legitimate. And Roger was under pressure from Linda to leave DJ for her and under pressure from DJ to stay in a marriage he felt was over. Aside from these personal factors, there was quite a bit of circumstantial evidence pointing to Roger's involvement. First of all, on the morning of the murder, he deviated significantly from his normal routine. He didn't get up as early as he usually did, and he didn't leave to go to the gym. Instead, he loitered in the garage with coffee, seemingly making himself very available to be waylaid by a would-be robber in a ski mask. When he was found dying in the street, he didn't seem to have been tied up very well. The duct tape on the eyeglasses, when Roger was wearing contacts, made the whole thing appear staged. Investigators for years speculated that Roger knew his killer was coming that morning. As far as he was concerned, it was a man he was in cahoots with who would rob him and allow him to shield significant funds from DJ in a divorce. The shooting happened when the plot went awry. But a deeper examination of the situation seems to undermine that theory. For one thing, the investigators learned that back in the 80s, contact lens technology was fairly unsophisticated, and many contact wearers still needed glasses for reading. It's totally possible that Roger was wearing both when Jefferson got to him. Additionally, if Roger and his killer were conspiring to make it appear that Roger was being robbed, why would Roger break the bedstead to escape and run down the stairs to get out of the house? The only person he would have had to convince that the robbery was legitimate was DJ, and by running, he foiled his own plot. Is it possible that Roger had initially colluded with Jefferson and then realized that Jefferson planned to double-cross him? I'm absolutely not ruling that out. But I note that Jefferson's girlfriend Nancy did not believe Roger had ever met Michael Jefferson. How would they have had the opportunity to form an alliance? Also, it's interesting that when faced with a murder charge, Jefferson chose to stay mum, rather than try to get a deal or downgrade the murder charge by claiming Roger had been in on it and the shooting was an accident. I was intrigued by the charge that the 23rd Judicial District Attorney's Office allowed Jefferson to plead down to. The conspiracy to commit first-degree murder charge says that he, quote, agreed with person or persons unknown. The elements of conspiracy in Colorado require 1. An agreement between 2 or more people, 2, with the intent that one or more of them will engage in conduct constituting the crime of murder, and 3, an overt act by one of the conspirators in furtherance of the agreement. In other words, conspiracy requires more than one person. Did the district attorney really have evidence that Jefferson was a co-conspirator? After all, Jefferson himself mentioned 2 men who had entered into the Dean home in one of the letters he sent to DJ back in 1990. He said, quote, "You were right, there were 2 of us." Was this enough to warrant the conspiracy charge? Or was it simply a downgraded murder charge that carried a significant enough penalty that the DA could live with it and Jefferson would accept it? I tried to ask former Chief Deputy DA Chris Wilcox that question in an email, but he has moved to the private sector and did not respond to my request. So again, we're left with the question, did Jefferson act alone? The modern investigators believe that he did. DJ heard only one stranger's voice and saw one strange man in her bedroom. No one reliably cited seeing 2 men in the getaway car, and there was only one set of footprints running through the snow. Jefferson in one instance cited 2 of us in the letter, but that was after the media published all the confusing witness reports of 1 man, 2 men, 1 white, 1 black. Jefferson was feeding into the chaos by throwing that in. It was only his voice in the phone calls, and the letters all say, "I am watching, I am owed money, I will kill Tammy," and so on. Further, after interviewing Jefferson, speaking to his ex-girlfriend Nancy and others who knew him, and listening to his jailhouse calls for months, the Douglas County investigators observed that Jefferson was a loner, a narcissistic personality who would not have colluded with an accomplice when he didn't need to. He came to Roger's home armed with a gun he wasn't planning on using, hence the target practice bullets. But he wasn't planning on sharing the money with anyone, whether Roger or someone else. Money was the primary motivator for Jefferson. The investigators learned this from post-arrest interviews of those who knew him. Remember that he admitted to his family in a letter that he had fallen into robbing and stealing. No doubt 28-year-old Jefferson, hearing from Nancy about the rich Roger Dean, who had 5 cars, a new home with a gaudy fountain in an exclusive subdivision, a standing squash game, a bejeweled wife, and a pretty blonde daughter, viewed Roger as an easy target for his get-rich-quick plans. Michael Jefferson has never once spoken about his involvement in Roger's murder. Even in his jailhouse calls, he never acknowledged his guilt. He told his visitors and callers that he took the deal offered by the DA because it would afford him the least amount of time in prison, not because he was indeed guilty. But the reality is the only reason Jefferson got off so easy is because the DA's hand was forced by the DNA lab scandal. It was pointed out many times that if Jefferson had been apprehended back in the 80s, he would have been eligible for the death penalty. And that brings up a very salient point Detective Mark O'Harold made to me, one critical of his own agency. If the 1985 investigators had not so casually dismissed the statement of Carly, the 9-year-old neighbor who was convinced a black man killed Roger, they very likely would have landed on Jefferson. Jefferson was dating one of Roger's office assistants. The relationship was very public, with Michael and Nancy often socializing with office colleagues outside the workplace. Interracial relationships were fairly uncommon at the time in Colorado, and interviews around Roger's office about any black males who might have access to Roger would almost certainly have quickly identified Nancy's boyfriend as someone who knew about the Dean's lifestyle, finances, and even where they lived. Carly was finally vindicated in court with the sentencing of Michael Jefferson, but she spent decades doubting herself and questioning her own convictions. DJ and Tammy spent decades looking over their shoulders and also were not truly vindicated from any involvement in the murder of their loved one until the identification of Michael Jefferson. And as for Jefferson himself, he spent many, many undeserving years as a free man. Thank you so much to Douglas County Sheriff's Office investigators Michelle Kennedy and Mark O'Harold for speaking with me about this case. And if you're one of the bad guys, they are coming for you. Budding or even accomplished genealogists, you're going to want to stick around for this announcement. I'm sure most of you are aware of the establishment of the Investigative Genetic Genealogy Accreditation Board, or IGGAB, in early 2022. Michelle Kennedy, the law enforcement officer and genealogist who identified Michael Jefferson as the killer of Roger Dean, is a board member. The mission of the nonprofit organization is to ensure the ethical and proficient practice of investigative genetic genealogy by providing formal accreditation for qualified practitioners. The IGGAB has implemented an accreditation exam for applicants to demonstrate their proficiency in IgG analyses and have established professional standards and a code of ethics that all accredited investigative genetic genealogists must adhere to. The IGG accreditation exam is now open for registration by genealogists aspiring to become accredited practitioners. The exam is open to individuals working in or planning a career in IGG in both law enforcement and the private sector. Candidates who pass the exam will earn the Accredited Investigative Genetic Genealogy designation, be listed in a forthcoming AIGG registry, and receive a complimentary one-year membership to the IGG Association. If you're interested in sitting for the exam and becoming an accredited investigative genealogist, please visit the IGGAB website to learn more. Thanks for listening to this episode of DNA ID. Before you leave, please let me tell you about some important things related to the show. If you'd like to support this podcast and in the process, get access to early and ad-free episodes as well as bonus content like crime scene photos, you can sign up for a Patreon subscription for only $5 a month by heading over to patreon.com/DNAID. Of course, you're welcome to contribute more than $5 a month. We rely on Patreon funds to pay for the original source materials I use to research each episode. If Patreon isn't your thing, you can also show your support with an AbJack Insider subscription through Apple Podcasts. It costs just $4.99 a month or $49.99 a year. Your AbJack Insider subscription will give you the same benefits for not only DNA ID, but for all of the shows on the AbJack network, like Killer Communications and Campus Killings. Head over to Apple Podcasts and find the DNA ID page or look for the AbJack network to get started. If you're on social media, we'd love to interact with you there. DNA ID is on every major social media platform. Search your favorite platforms for DNA ID Podcast to find us. We also have a YouTube channel, and our website is dnaidpodcast.com. You can find links to all of these anytime in our show notes. If you need to reach the show, contact us by emailing dnaidpodcast@gmail.com. Finally, if you want to pick up some fun DNA ID merch and represent the show, visit the store at www.customizedgirl.com/s/DNA ID podcast. DNA ID is researched, written, and hosted by me, Jessica Betancourt. It's produced by me and Mike Morford of AbJack Entertainment. Music by Connor Betancourt.